Anyway, they prescribed this medicine called Cytotec, which you insert vaginally and then you wait and then you have a miscarriage. And it was the most violent thing that's ever happened to my body. My doctor did not prepare me for what was going to happen in terms of the severity of what happened. And thank God my partner is a medical person. I'm not sure I would have actually even survived it. I was bleeding profusely and losing consciousness at home. And nobody checked to make sure that I would have somebody there with me. It was literally one of the worst things that I've ever been through physically. It was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I had to induce it myself. Like, you can only imagine what that was like. And my partner, it was very emotional. It took me a good several hours to gain the courage and the strength to administer that medication, because I was convincing myself that my baby was alive and that I didn't want to kill it. I mean, you can only imagine just the psychological turmoil that happens. And my partner was helping me to realize that it wasn't a baby and that I was helping it and that it wasn't gonna, it was, that, it just wasn't right, and so eventually I just did it. I had to do it. And it was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And it didn't end there, because after my miscarriage, nobody from my doctor's office checked in on me. And so when, like, a week or maybe 2 weeks later, I was still having bleeding and I was still cramping, I thought it was really normal because nobody asked, nobody checked in. They just said some bleeding is expected and cramping is expected. And, and I think as women, we're really socialized to just deal with stuff. And anyway, at some point I couldn't even walk after the miscarriage. The pain was like 10 out of 10. And there was this morning where my partner said, that's it. Like, we're going to the hospital. We're going to the doctor. Like, you can't be in this pain anymore. And we called my doctor's office and they said, oh yes, if you're in that amount of pain, you need to go to the emergency room. And it was like, as if I should have known that, there, no accountability, nothing. Anyway, I ended up in the emergency room and I did a blood test as soon as I got there. And the person who did the blood test, who was this random phlebotomist who didn't even introduce himself to me, I was sobbing the entire time. He just casually announced, oh yeah, you're still pregnant. I was still pregnant. I was walking around for 2 weeks. The Cytotec, the medicine that I took to induce my miscarriage at home, didn't work. Regardless, even though I had been through everything that I had been through, and clearly something had exited my body, I was still technically, there was still tissue in me. And I not weirdly, but I sort of thought I felt still pregnant after my miscarriage. I still felt nauseous. I still was crampy, bloated. And I was I'm just making it up. I really thought I was making it up, but I wasn't. I still had very high levels of HCG, which is the pregnancy hormone. I did not trust myself, apparently, to know that something was wrong, but I was definitely still pregnant. And I ended up being admitted into the hospital, and I had to go for another ultrasound that was unbearably painful. It was unbearable. It was a horrible, horrible ultrasound. And the ultrasound ended up making me bleed so much that I was bleeding through the mattress that I was laying on in the hospital. And I was in 10 out of 10 pain, literally 10 out of 10 pain. And this amazing doctor, who was the on-call gynecological doctor, came in and she sat with me and she explained what was going on. And she told me that I had two options. I could either have an emergency D&C or I could do cytotech again. And my instinct was to do cytotech again because I didn't want to go for surgery. I didn't want the trauma. Like, I just, that was felt too traumatic. And anyway, my partner was on the phone and talking with the doctor, and both of them convinced me to get the D&C, which ultimately was the best decision because another round of cytotech would have been even more traumatic. And I had an emergency D&C that night. And like, I had to have two miscarriages. And there was like, it was an emergency sort of situation that didn't have to happen that way.